Hello everybody, I hope you're well. Please forgive my voice through this video. I have, as usual, if you know me at all, done way too much talking in the past couple of days. Yes, so I just got diagnosed as autistic and also as somebody with ADHD. Yay! I'm really excited because this has been kind of a long time coming and has been something I've been on a journey of figuring out about myself for a little while now. Some of you might be wondering like how I got to the point of being diagnosed as autistic, but I'm going to save that for a different video because it's kind of a long story. So I wanted to talk to you guys about what being autistic means and yeah, more generally like what autism is, because I feel like a lot of people misunderstand autism, and there's so many reasons for that. That's partly because of representation. Like all our representation in the media of autistic people are typically white, cisgendered men or boys, and that's just one way that autism can look, but there's a lot of different types of autistic people. Autistic people can be any race, any nationality, any gender, any sexuality. So yeah, it's just like a really broad range of what it can look like. What is autism? Because I feel like for me, before I found out that I was autistic, I really didn't have a good understanding of what autism was. Like I knew the word and I had some very bad stereotypes hanging around in my brain, but if somebody asked me like define autism, I would have been like, so in case you're feeling that way, this is what autism is. Autism is a neurological difference. So basically it means that when your brain is developing, it just develops differently to how most people's brain develops. So we have the word autistic for people whose brain develops atypically in a certain way, and then we have the word autistic, which just means not autistic. Autism is not a disease, it doesn't need to be cured. Autism is just a different way of being human. And then secondly, all autistic people are different. So we have this phrase in the autistic community, which is once you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person, because we're all really, really different. And that's because autism is like a whole, it's like a whole spectrum of different characteristics, and any autistic person could have any of them to varying degrees. So that just means there's endless possibilities of what it means to be autistic. So even in me summarizing here what autism is, this is just one way of explaining it, but there's lots of ways to explain it. And me being an autistic person, I'm just one example of an autistic person, but there are so many, many different autistic people in the world who will all present and talk and act differently. So number 3, I wanted to explain like some of the differences that autistic people tend to experience, or some of the things that makes our brain different. So the first one is that we tend to go about communicating and socializing differently. So this could look like a lot of different things. It really is a very broad spectrum of traits, but some of that could be that we tend to be very direct. We tend to take things very literally. We don't imply things in what we say. Some autistic people tend to talk in long, long monologues. No idea who that could be. Some autistic people are non-speaking. Other autistic people are semi-speaking. We don't tend to read neurotypical social behavior very well, but we're actually really good at reading other autistic people. Autistic people like to socialize in similar ways and communicate in similar ways, so we tend to get along better. A lot of my friends are autistic, but sometimes there might be some communication differences that you have to allow for, because we just communicate in different ways and I won't always pick up on the social cues that they think they're sending me, not received. Another way in which we experience the world differently is through our senses. So our senses tend to be like really heightened, or they tend to be kind of dull, so we won't experience things as strongly. So we've got hypersensitivity or hyposensitivity. The sensory differences can affect everything. They can affect our sight, our smell, our hearing, where we experience different textures, how we receive our internal body signals, basically. Just like everything, all our senses can be affected. The other thing that's often affected is our attention and focus. For autistic people, typically we have like extraordinary amounts of focus. We can focus on one thing for years and years and years and years. And there's lots of reasons as to why that is, but basically we can just like hyper focus on something, and it could be something that we spend our attention on for our entire lives. We also have differences in how we regulate our energy. Living in a non-autistic society, we expend a lot more energy than other people doing really basic things. Grocery shopping, socializing, working a job, all those things take a lot more energy for us than holistic people. And so that can mean that like our energy levels need more regulation and can be either really high energy or other days are really, really low energy. And so regulating our energy can be something that we struggle with. We also regulate our emotions and our senses differently. So we do this thing called stimming. Now, all human beings stim. Everybody stims. Stimming can be like chewing your fingernails or tapping your pen. Those are all stims, and it's just a way to release energy and regulate stress and your emotions. But autistic people tend to stim in different ways to non-autistic people, and we also tend to stim a lot more. So we might like rock backwards and forwards or side to side. We might flap our hands. But there are lots of different stims, and those are like two very stereotypical examples, but there are like as many autistic stims as there are autistic people. And then finally, the last major difference is that we often love routine and repetition. Now, again, all autistic people are different. Not everybody will have all of these traits, but we tend to really find security and safety in a sense of routine. And having our routine disrupted can be really distressing. And there's different reasons for this. Part of it is that our brain doesn't release dopamine until like the 100th time of doing something. So we like repetition. Anything that's repetitive is what our brain needs in order to give us that dopamine. But the second thing is that like we tend to struggle with social imagination. So that means that if we don't have a plan, we can't really imagine what's going to happen. And that can be very anxiety producing and very scary. Like imagine you don't have a plan for the day, and instead of seeing all the possibilities, you just have a vacuum. You just feel like you don't know what to do, and it can create like a sense of panic. So when autistic people know what to expect, or we have a plan, we're able to prepare ourselves mentally, and it gives us that sense of safety and security. Alrighty, so that concludes my first video. I've really enjoyed chatting with you guys about autism. In the future, I'm going to be making videos about being an actor, being autistic, and like how those two things mesh, and also more about ADHD. And there's some other topics that I find really interesting that I'd love to explore with you guys. So if any of that sounds good, please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment if you found any of this helpful or interesting, or you related to any of the things I talked about. And yes, I will try and make sure my voice is not so hoarse next time. But I've had so much fun chatting with you guys, and I will see you soon. Bye.